Galactic auction finds rare spaceships scheduled for dismantling. I took action. The auction hall was massive, a cylindrical space station orbiting a dim, distant star. Its walls shimmered with holographic advertisements, flashing images of ancient starships, alien artifacts, and relics that no one had touched in decades. Hundreds of species filled the hall, their eyes scanning the bidding boards with anticipation. Tentacles, eyes, claws, and wings moved among the crowds, all focused on one thing: the next sale. Humanity had never been seen as remarkable in galactic society. Humans were clever, resourceful, and stubborn, but in this part of space those traits were quietly underestimated. The aliens considered humans small, inefficient, and primitive compared to the grand fleets of other civilizations. And yet, here in this auction, a small human observer stood quietly near the edge of the crowd, watching everything with a calm intensity. The auctioneer floated above the central platform, his voice amplified through multiple translation channels. He was a species called the Rallin, tall and skeletal, with translucent skin that pulsed faintly in rhythm with his speech. Next item, he called, his multiple eyes scanning the room. A human-built spacecraft, model HXR 7, scheduled for dismantling. All systems considered obsolete. Estimated raw value 150,000 galactic credits. A murmur ran through the room. Many of the alien bidders snickered, pointing at the human-shaped vessel on the display. The ship was battered, its paint chipped, and small dents marred the hull. It looked fragile compared to the sleek gleaming vessels others were bidding on. Its controls were manual. No AI assistance, no automatic shields, no quantum propulsion. One alien, a blue-scaled trader with 3 mouths, laughed. Who would want this junk? Even a small asteroid could crush it without effort. Another, a winged collector from the distant Andaraz system, scoffed. It has no sensors, no weapons, no value beyond scrap. Why waste credits? The human observer, named Evan Kale, said nothing. His eyes scanned the vessel carefully. He had seen similar ships before, back on Earth and among the first human colonies. There was something about the design that aliens didn't understand, something subtle, almost hidden. While others saw rust and inefficiency, Evan noticed the small details. Extra reinforcements in the hull, redundant manual systems, compartments designed to survive failure, and a layout that allowed one person to control nearly everything in an emergency. This ship was old, yes, but it was also a survivor. "Starting bid!" the auctioneer boomed. 10,000 credits! Numbers flashed in the air as species competed. 10,000. 15. 20. But when the human ship came up, many ignored it. Others placed tiny mocking bids, not caring if they won or lost. The atmosphere was a mix of amusement and boredom. Eben remained silent, thinking carefully. He knew the ship's value wasn't in galactic credits. It was in what it could do, what it had survived, and what it could survive again. The auctioneer's gavel descended, signaling the end of another item. 25,000, a voice called from a distant corner. A crustacean-like alien named Grick Tau was trying to make a quick deal. "I'll take it for scrap value." Evan stepped forward. His voice was calm, confident. 30,000. A ripple of surprise passed through the hall. The alien bidders paused, exchanging confused glances. Humans rarely bid in these auctions, and when they did, they usually overpaid by mistake. They didn't understand human strategy. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed at Evan. 30,000 accepted? Are you serious, human? I'm serious, Evan replied simply. His eyes never left the ship. The other bidders laughed. You've been tricked! This is junk! You'll never fly it again! Shouted Grick Tall, his claws clicking. Evan said nothing. He just raised his hand to confirm the bid. The auctioneer, after a long pause, reluctantly nodded. Sold, he announced. Human bidder, HXR 7. Proceed to collection. Warning. Ship scheduled for dismantling immediately. Handle with care. Evan walked to the docking area where the ship waited. As he approached, he ran his fingers along the hull, feeling every dent and scratch. Each mark told a story of survival. Meteor impacts, failed engines, emergency landings. To an alien, it looked like decay. To a human, it was history. It was a record of what humanity could endure and still survive. The docking bay was crowded with labor droids preparing to dismantle the ship. Evan waved them off politely, but firmly. "Not today," he said. The droids paused, confused by his tone. One small mechanical arm extended and hesitated before stepping back. Alone now, Evan examined the ship more closely. Inside, the cockpit smelled faintly of burned circuits and old fuel. The controls were simple, but robust. There were levers, switches, and panels that didn't rely on external signals or automation. Evan smiled slightly. This ship wasn't designed to dazzle or dominate. It was designed to adapt, to survive, to outlast. A datapad flickered to life, projecting the ship's records. Most of it was technical noise, inefficient power usage, outdated engines, manual navigation systems. But buried deep in the logs, Evan found the clues that the aliens had missed. Emergency protocols for systems failure, hidden compartments for supplies, alternative fuel circuits, and an override system capable of rerouting power in almost any scenario. "This is going to take work," he muttered. But he didn't hesitate. Evan had repaired older ships before, salvaged broken vessels, and rebuilt them from scraps. This one was no different. Hours passed. The docking bay emptied as the auction house prepared for the next sale. Evan worked alone, inspecting, cleaning, and mapping out the systems. Each panel he opened revealed more clever designs. Human cleverness disguised as simplicity. By the time the station's artificial sun dimmed to simulate evening, Evan had made his first modifications. Minor adjustments to the energy conduits, replacements of worn-out fuel lines, and recalibration of the manual navigation systems. The ship hummed faintly, almost awake. Evan paused to rest, sitting on the floor of the cockpit. He looked at the stars outside the docking bay's transparent shields. Beyond the station, vast unknown regions of space waited. Dangerous, unpredictable, full of alien empires, pirates, and uncharted phenomena. But he felt a spark of anticipation. This ship, long written off as junk, was his key to proving something. Humans were often underestimated. Aliens mocked their designs, laughed at their improvisation, and ignored their stubborn resilience. But time and again, humans found ways to survive, and sometimes to thrive, where others failed. A soft alarm beeped. Evan jumped slightly and saw a warning panel flash. The dismantling schedule still existed. If the station's administrators realized he had started work, they might confiscate the ship. He would have to move carefully, keep his modifications hidden, and ensure the ship could fly before anyone else noticed. Outside the bay, a pair of alien engineers walked by, peering at the vessel. One of them, a four-eye technician, frowned. Strange. The ship, it seems, powered? It's impossible. The other replied, "That model should be dead. Scrap." No one could. Evan listened silently, suppressing a grin. Let them underestimate it. That was exactly how humans won. As the station lights dimmed further, Evan worked through the night. He traced circuits, replaced old conduits, and tested emergency systems. The ship responded slowly, groaning like an old animal waking from sleep. But it responded. By the time the artificial dawn spread across the hall, the human-built vessel was no longer just junk. It was a machine ready to prove itself. And Evan Cale, a single human in a galaxy full of disbelief, knew one truth. The universe had never truly understood what humans could do. And soon, the galaxy would learn. The station had settled into a quiet hum after the flurry of auctions. Most of the alien bidders had moved on, distracted by newer, shinier relics. The human ship, the HFY 7, sat alone in the docking bay, its hull quietly glowing with the subtle energy of systems awakening for the first time in decades. Evan Cale crouched over the main console, carefully tracing circuits and monitoring the faint pulses of energy running through the ship's veins. The aliens had scoffed, laughed, and left. To them, the ship was junk. A primitive human vessel that could barely leave orbit without catastrophic failure. But Evan knew differently. He had seen what humans could do when underestimated. He had seen ingenuity turn a broken machine into a weapon, a tool, a lifeboat, and even when the odds were stacked against him, he had survived. Now, the HXR-7 was his project, his secret, and soon it would become his proof. Evan started with the engine core. The alien engineers had marked it as obsolete, incompatible with modern fuel types, and hopeless. Most would have dismantled it for scrap, but Evan examined the wiring diagrams carefully. "It's old," he murmured, "but built to survive." He traced the power conduits with steady fingers, rewiring damaged circuits and patching worn insulation. Sparks flickered, then died, and finally, the hum of life returned to the ship. As he worked, he noticed the subtle genius hidden in the HXR-7's design. Unlike modern ships optimized for speed or weapon efficiency, this ship was built to adapt. If one system failed, another could take over. If one panel shorted, the ship could reroute power. It was not perfect, not sleek, but it was resilient. Outside, the station's automated maintenance drones continued their routines, unaware that one human was reversing the official judgment of years. Evan moved to the navigation system next. The aliens had mocked the manual controls, calling them primitive. But humans had something the aliens often underestimated: intuition. While other species relied on AI to calculate and predict, humans could adapt on the fly, responding to the unexpected. He ran tests on the navigation circuits, carefully recalibrating sensors that hadn't functioned in decades. He replaced worn-out lenses with newer ones scavenged from the station's stores, rerouted some minor systems, and slowly the controls responded. Tiny indicators flickered to life, and the ship's internal AI, simple, basic, and slow compared to alien standards. Hours passed and Evan's attention never wavered. Outside, the docking bay shifted as ships came and went, but he remained focused. Every time he fixed a minor system, every time the panel responded to his touch, a quiet satisfaction built inside him. The aliens could mock all they wanted. They had no idea that survival wasn't about perfection. It was about adaptability. By mid-afternoon, the HXR-7 was alive in ways the aliens could never imagine. The main engine thrummed softly, auxiliary power surged through circuits, and life support systems were functional again. Evan stood back for a moment, wiping sweat from his brow. He knew the ship wasn't ready for full flight yet. Not fully, but it could move, and that was enough. Then came the first test. Evan carefully guided the ship to the station's outer docking ring, where automated test bays allowed new vessels to perform trial maneuvers without risking collision. He activated the engines at minimal power. A low hum filled the air. Slowly the ship lifted off its supports, hovered, and then responded to control input. It wasn't fast! It wasn't flashy! But it moved, steady, reliable, and surprisingly agile for a vessel labeled as junk. From across the station, a group of alien engineers paused mid-task. They had returned, curious to check the status of the HXR-7. "Impossible," whispered one, a thin, four-limbed engineer. "It should not move. The engines are incompatible with fuel types." "Then how?" another stammered. "It's alive." Evan ignored them. He was used to disbelief. It was part of the human advantage. No one ever expected humans to do more with less. Over the next few days, Evan worked tirelessly. He replaced old power conduits, patched radiation leaks, and repaired the rudimentary life support systems. Every adjustment was small, almost invisible, but cumulative. The ship slowly became more than a relic. It became a functioning vessel once again. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate across the station. Alien mechanics and engineers murmured to each other about the human's strange behavior. Why is he still working on that old vessel? asked one engineer. Perhaps he's delusional, another replied. It's scrap. Everyone knows it's scrap. But it moves. The thrusters. They respond. How? The whispers spread. By the third day, small crowds gathered outside the docking bay. Many came out of curiosity, some out of ridicule, and a few out of disbelief. Evan didn't notice. He was too focused, his hands busy with wiring, his mind calculating modifications, his instincts guiding every repair. Humans were stubborn like that, persistent, precise, and patient when the world expected them to give up. Then, on the fourth day, a complication arose. A station-wide alert announced an incoming pirate raid. Small but fast vessels had been detected moving toward the station. Other bidders who had dismissed the HXR 7 as junk began scrambling. They called security drones, activated shields, and prepared their ships for defense. Panic spread. Evan didn't panic. He merely looked at the ship, running final systems checks. "This is what you were made for," he murmured. The ship had survived decades of neglect, alien ridicule, and scheduled dismantling. Now, it would face a real test. He guided the HXRA 7 out of the docking bay, past the gawking crowds and into the open space above the station. The pirates were small, fast, and aggressive, but they underestimated the HXR 7. Its manual systems allowed maneuvers that AI-controlled ships found difficult. Its redundant systems meant it could take damage and still function. And Evan, human intuition, allowed him to anticipate moves that no computer could calculate. The first pirate vessel fired a warning shot. It struck the HXR 7's hull, but instead of panic or damage, the ship flexed with the impact. The minor dent absorbed energy, and the ship maintained course. The pirates, expecting an easy target, hesitated. From the station below, alien engineers watched in astonishment. "Look at it!" shouted one. "It's evading. How is it maneuvering like that without AI guidance?"
Another whispered, almost fearfully. "Humans, we underestimated them."
The HXR 7 danced between the pirate vessels, dodging attacks, using subtle bursts of energy from auxiliary thrusters, and relying on its robust design to survive. Evan guided the ship with steady hands, each movement deliberate and precise. The pirates fired wildly, frustrated by the unpredictability of the human ship. Finally, the pirates retreated. They had no explanation for the vessel that had survived hits, dodged every attack, and maintained functionality while sustaining damage. As they fled, one transmission was broadcast to all nearby systems. Warning: human vessel, unpredictable. Avoid engagement. Back on the station, silence followed the retreat. Aliens stared at the HXR 7. They had mocked it, dismissed it, called it junk. Now, it had survived where advanced vessels failed. Evan guided the ship back to the docking bay. His movements were calm, almost casual, but inside, a quiet pride glowed. The ship was responding as he knew it would. It wasn't flashy or perfect, but it was alive, resilient, and human-built. That evening, as the artificial sun dimmed once more, Evan sat in the cockpit reviewing the systems. Every wire he had touched, every adjustment he had made, every minor repair had contributed to this moment. The ship had survived, not because it was the most advanced, but because it was adaptable. It was human, and in the galaxy, adaptability often counted more than perfection. From the observation decks, aliens whispered, murmured, and speculated. Some feared the human ingenuity they had dismissed. Some admired it, though they would not admit it openly. But all of them understood one thing. The HXRS-7 was no longer junk, and the human who piloted it was no longer just another primitive being.
Evan leaned back, eyes scanning the starfield outside the station.
Ahead lay uncharted space, hostile forces, and unknown dangers. But the HXR-7 was ready, and so was he. The galaxy had never understood humans before. That was about to change. The calm after the pirate attack lasted barely a day. News of the human vessel spread across the station like wildfire.
Aliens who had mocked the HXR-7 now stared at it with unease.
Engineers and traders whispered in corners, exchanging theories about how a supposedly primitive human ship had survived where their advanced fleets had failed. But Evan Cale didn't care about whispers. He was focused on preparation. He knew that surviving a raid was one thing, but the galaxy was full of dangers far worse than pirates. Raiders, rogue AI fleets, hostile species, and interstellar storms could all strike without warning. His ship had survived neglect, dismantling schedules, and alien doubt, but now it would face the first real challenge of its life, a challenge that no amount of repair or intuition could fully predict. A station-wide alarm blared suddenly. The red lights of emergency flickered across the docking bay. A transmission came through the comm system, crackling with static.
Attention! Incoming fleet. Unknown vessels approaching at high velocity.
Threat level, maximum. The docking bay shook as automated shutters sealed the hull. Evan remained calm, his eyes scanning the incoming readouts. Sensors displayed a swarm of sleek black ships, all bearing the insignia of a notorious raider alliance known for hunting ships for salvage and for sport. They were larger, faster, and more heavily armed than any pirate Evan had encountered before. The aliens in the bay panicked. Many scrambled to their own ships, some barely making it to the docks. Shields were activated, weapons were readied, and security drones buzzed nervously through the corridors. Yet Evan stayed where he was, moving methodically toward the HXR-7. He climbed into the cockpit, feeling the hum of the ship beneath him. Each system flickered to life as he ran diagnostics. The engine thrummed steadily. Life support was stable. Weapons, primitive by Galactic standards but functional, were online. Most importantly, the ship could move. And for now, that was enough. Outside, the raider fleet appeared on sensors. They moved with precision, closing the distance quickly. Their lead ship, enormous and black, was clearly the flagship. Evan studied their formation. Each vessel relied heavily on synchronized AI guidance. They were predictable, rigid, and overconfident. And that was exactly what he needed. He initiated a takeoff. The HXR-7 lifted from the docking bay, its engines pushing it into open space. Alien spectators froze as the human vessel maneuvered between stationary stations, debris, and minor obstacles with surprising agility. The raiders opened fire immediately.
Energy blast streaked toward the ship. The HXR-7
shuddered but held. Evan engaged emergency thrusters and manual stabilizers. Where an AI might have relied on pre-programmed evasive patterns, Evan relied on instinct. He twisted, rolled, and darted, guiding the vessel like a skilled pilot rather than a computer.
"Impossible!"
shouted a nearby alien engineer.
"It's dodging."
Without AI, Evan's mind raced. He didn't need flashy weaponry. The HXR-7 wasn't the fastest ship, and its lasers were basic. But it had something far more valuable: adaptability. Every time a raider aimed, Evan adjusted the trajectory, rerouted power, and kept the ship moving unpredictably. The raiders fired more aggressively, but the HXR-7's redundant systems absorbed minor hits, rerouted energy to damaged areas, and maintained functionality. The flagship, sensing resistance, focused its attention. Energy beams slashed toward the HXR-7, each shot capable of obliterating lesser vessels. Yet Evan anticipated each attack, using the ship's manual controls to slip between beams, exploiting minor gaps in the AI's prediction algorithms. One by one, the smaller raiders collided with debris, misjudged distances, or overshot their targets, while the HXR-7 remained steady. From the observation deck, station inhabitants watched in awe. Engineers who had ridiculed the human vessel now whispered in disbelief. "Look at it," murmured one. "It's surviving." And outmaneuvering them. Another added, voice trembling. "Humans, they are unpredictable." Evan's focus never wavered. He engaged a secondary tactic, using the station itself as a shield and obstacle course. The raiders were forced to navigate around massive structures, while the HXAR-7's compact and adaptable frame allowed it to slip through tighter spaces. A smaller AI-controlled ship collided with the station's outer hull, destroying itself. Another miscalculated a turn and was knocked off course. The flagship tried to overwhelm the human with brute force, firing multiple concentrated energy beams simultaneously. Evan's hands moved with precision, diverting energy to shields, rerouting power to thrusters, and engaging emergency stabilizers. The ship shuddered under the assault but continued moving, each system compensating for the damage. One raider, in a reckless maneuver, fired a pulse designed to disable all electronics within range. Sensors flickered, lights dimmed, and the ship shuddered. But the HXR-7's design accounted for this. Critical systems were shielded, manually controlled, and isolated from the rest of the circuitry. Evan switched to manual mode, guiding the vessel entirely by instinct and sight. The ship moved unpredictably, disappearing from the raiders' targeting sensors. The raiders grew frustrated. Their AI systems attempted to predict the HXR-7's movements, but each calculation failed. The ship did the unexpected, turning corners, darting through debris fields, and even using the energy from the station's power grid to momentarily boost its shields. From the station, alien observers gasped. No ship in known space had ever survived such an onslaught with so few systems. The human vessel was alive in a way no advanced technology could match. Evan knew that raw survival wasn't enough. He needed to force the raiders to retreat without destroying the station or risking civilians. He activated a series of small but precise maneuvers, leading the raiders into a confined area filled with old satellite debris. The flagship, too large to maneuver easily, followed blindly. Energy beams collided with the floating wreckage, causing explosions that damaged several raiders. The flagship tried to maintain control, but one of its wings clipped a large debris satellite, forcing it off course. Panic spread among the fleet. The remaining raiders, unable to adapt to the unpredictable human tactics, began retreating. As the last of the raider ships fled, a broadcast echoed through space. It was an automated transmission from the flagship, relayed to nearby systems. Warning: human vessel. Adaptive. Unpredictable. Avoid engagement. Back on the station, a stunned silence fell. Aliens who had previously laughed at the human vessel now stared with a mix of fear and respect. Engineers whispered, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Evan guided the HXR-7 back to the docking bay, moving with calm precision. Systems were functional, damage minimal, and most importantly, the ship had survived. The pirates had underestimated humans, and it had cost them. He stepped out of the cockpit, breathing deeply. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but he smiled. The HXR-7 wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of something far greater. Humanity didn't always have the biggest ships, the most advanced AI, or the flashiest weapons. But humans had something else: ingenuity, adaptability, and persistence. From the observation decks, aliens began to murmur in hushed tones. Some were fearful, some were impressed, but all of them had learned a crucial lesson: humans were not to be underestimated. Evan returned to the ship's interior, inspecting minor damages and running diagnostics. Every system was online, but the ship had shown its true potential. For the first time, Evan allowed himself to imagine the possibilities. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and opportunity. If a supposedly obsolete vessel like the HXR-7 could survive pirates and AI fleets, what else could humans do? That evening, Evan looked out at the stars. Beyond the station lay unexplored systems, hostile territories, and ancient mysteries. The HXR-7 was ready, and so was he. The galaxy had learned something new that day. Humans were clever, adaptable, and dangerous in ways that technology could not predict. The HXR-7 was not just a survivor. It was a testament to human ingenuity. And the story was far from over. The station was quiet now. The raid had passed, leaving behind the faint scent of burned metal, floating debris, and stunned silence. The aliens who had once mocked the HXR-7 now whispered about it in fear and admiration. Engineers inspected their own ships, recalculating every assumption about human designs. Traders revised their records. And somewhere in the observation deck's high-ranking officers scratched their heads, realizing they had underestimated humanity in ways they could never have predicted. Evan Kale, however, was already thinking ahead. The HXR-7 was not just a ship, it was a statement. A statement that humans could survive, adapt, and outthink even the most technologically advanced opponents. But survival alone was not enough. He had to show the galaxy that humans could turn disadvantage into power, ingenuity into action, and persistence into victory. He stepped into the cockpit, running the final diagnostics. The ship was nearly perfect now. Hulls repaired, energy conduits reinforced, shields stabilized, and engines calibrated. Every minor adjustment he had made over the past week had culminated in a vessel that could face almost anything. Yet Evan knew it wasn't perfection that mattered. It was flexibility, resilience, and the ability to respond to the unexpected. That was humanity's edge. Outside station security began to arrive, curious about the humans' continued work. Most expected failure, expecting the HXR-7 to sputter, collapse, or fail at the first test. But Evan ignored them. He didn't need an audience. He only needed results. Then, without warning, a distress call flashed across the station's network. It was from a nearby colony, under attack by a heavily armed raider fleet. Civilians were trapped, and their communication systems were being jammed. Other stations had responded too slowly, and the raiders' speed meant the colony might be destroyed before reinforcements arrived. Evan's eyes narrowed. This was the real test. Not simulated attacks, not auction house chaos, but real lives in immediate danger. He didn't hesitate. The HXR-7 lifted from the docking bay, engines humming, shields primed, and every system ready. As he exited the station's protective orbit, alien observers watched in disbelief. The HXR-7 moved faster than anyone expected, weaving through asteroid fields and debris with skill and precision. The raiders, confident in their numbers and superior technology, were caught off guard. They had dismissed the human ship as insignificant, and now it was coming straight for them. Evan assessed the situation. The raiders were organized, coordinated, and heavily armed. A direct confrontation could destroy the HXR-7 in seconds, but humans rarely confronted danger head-on. Instead, Evan relied on strategy, anticipation, and improvisation. He calculated the weak points in their formation, predicting movements the raiders themselves did not expect. He activated a diversion tactic. Using the HXR-7's small size and maneuverability, he darted between two massive raider ships, triggering automated turrets and firing their own weapons at each other. The raiders' formation broke instantly, creating confusion. Smaller vessels collided with debris or overshot their targets, while the HXR-7 remained agile, dodging each incoming blast with ease. From the colony below, sensors recorded the chaos. Automated defense systems had been offline, leaving the HXR-7 as the only active protection. Civilians watched from safe zones as the human ship moved unpredictably, striking fear into the raiders without relying on raw firepower. Evan didn't fire unless absolutely necessary. He understood that destruction alone was not the goal. The goal was to protect, survive, and demonstrate the intelligence and adaptability that humans excelled at. Using precise energy pulses, minor EMP bursts, and tactical maneuvers, he disabled key systems on the raider ships. Engines failed. Communication arrays were knocked offline, and targeting systems jammed, all without destroying the vessels entirely. The raiders, confused and disoriented, began to retreat. Their fleet had underestimated the human ship, and now they faced the consequences. From the observation decks of nearby stations, a stunned silence fell. Engineers, military officers, and traders alike whispered in disbelief. The humans had done what no one else had imagined. They had defeated a superior force without advanced weaponry, without overwhelming firepower, and without AI assistance. Back on the HXR 7, Evan monitored the retreat. Every system was functioning perfectly. Damage had been minimal, but more importantly, the ship had proven its value. It was a living example of human ingenuity, flexible, resilient, and deadly in ways technology could not predict. As the last raider ship fled into deep space, the HXR 7 returned to the colony. Civilians cheered, though many had never seen a human before. Automated systems came back online, but the legend of the ship and its pilot would endure far longer than any recording or statistic. Evan guided the vessel back to the space station. Alien observers now approached cautiously. Some were curious, some were fearful, and some, though they would never admit it openly, were impressed. Engineers who had laughed at the HXR 7's design were now taking notes, studying human ingenuity. "Remarkable," one muttered. We did not understand their technology. It's alive." Another added, voice trembling slightly. "Humans, they think differently. They adapt." Evan stepped out of the HXR 7 once more, calm but alert. The ship had survived neglect, ridicule, and 2 major attacks. It had proven itself against forces that outnumbered it and outgunned it. And most importantly, it had demonstrated the human way, using intelligence, strategy, and resilience, rather than relying solely on advanced technology. He addressed the station's administrators, who had gathered near the observation decks. "This ship isn't perfect," he said. "It's not the fastest or the strongest, but it survives. It adapts. And it proves that humans cannot be underestimated." The administrators, initially skeptical, nodded slowly. They had watched with their own eyes. Numbers, statistics, and AI predictions had all failed to anticipate what a human and a human-built ship could accomplish. News of the HXR 7's victory spread quickly through the galaxy. Traders, engineers, and military fleets updated their records. Ships that had once been considered primitive or obsolete were suddenly being reassessed. Auction houses quietly reclassified human-built relics. Manuals were rewritten not just for technical data but for the philosophy behind human engineering: adaptability, redundancy, and survival. In quiet corners of the galaxy, alien officers and commanders exchanged hushed warnings. "Never underestimate humans," one said. "Their ships are unpredictable. Their tactics, we cannot anticipate them." Evan, however, remained humble. He returned to the HXR 7, inspecting minor systems and making small adjustments. He knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and challenges were endless. But humanity had proven something vital. They could survive, adapt, and even thrive against overwhelming odds. The station's lights dimmed, signaling nightfall. Evan looked out at the stars, the vast expanse of uncharted systems stretching before him. Beyond the colony, beyond the threats, beyond the known galaxy, possibilities awaited. And the HXR 7 was ready. For humanity, this was more than survival. It was recognition. A quiet but undeniable message that the galaxy had never fully understood. Humans were clever, resilient, and dangerous in ways no technology could predict. They were not to be dismissed, mocked, or ignored. As Evan prepared to depart, alien engineers approached him cautiously. One handed him a tablet, on it the station's official record. Human-built ships, no longer classified as scrap. Reassessment required. Evan smiled slightly. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans had never relied on perfection, advanced AI, or brute force. They had relied on ingenuity, adaptability, and the courage to act when others hesitated. And that was a power the galaxy could never fully control. With a soft hum, the HXR 7 lifted from the docking bay, engines glowing warmly in the dim station lights. It moved through space with quiet confidence, carrying a human pilot and a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget. Evan Kale guided the ship into the vast unknown. Ahead lay unexplored star systems, potential threats, and infinite opportunities. The HXR-7 was ready. Humanity was ready. And the universe for the first time had truly begun to notice.